On this video, I am going to continue Book of Job. I have been looking at each verse, looking at the grammar and doing a grammatical analysis verse by verse, as well as a commentary verse by verse from the Hebrew text. And the Book of Job is such an amazing book. We stopped at chapter 9, verse 13. So we pick it up at verse 14 of 9, where Job, through 21, is going to talk about the impossibility of proving his innocence before God. He says if he could come before God in a court to defend himself, God's power would only overwhelm him, so that he would appear guilty. So no matter what he does before God, he said, I would appear guilty. So I'm reading verse 14. Af ki anochi echanenu evhara devarai imo. Indeed, if I shall answer him. Or I think the idea here would be how much less if I should answer him. And I here is emphatic, anochi. Anenu is from ana, a lamed hey verb, to answer. The hey has dropped out, and we add an infix preceded or followed by who, the pronominal suffix, third masculine singular, from the root ana. So how much less if I should answer him? Cow imperfect, first person singular, as we said, from ana, with the pronominal suffix third masculine singular in the suffix. So it would have read e'anenhu becoming e'anenu, where the hey of the pronominal suffix third masculine singular by reverse assimilation has gone back into the noon, that hinge that is put here. So then we move on. Evracha devarai imo. That I should choose my arguments with him. Evchara is from bara. It is a cow imperfect, first common singular from bara. So even though I would come before him, how in the world would I choose my arguments before such a powerful being? So what Job is saying, he considers himself much weaker in the context than the helpers of Rahab, which were alluded to previously. If they cannot stand up to God, he is much less capable as they. That seems to be the flow of the thought here. Then in verse 15, Asher im sadakti lo e'aneh lim shofti et hanan, whom though I were righteous, I would not be able to answer him. I would make to make supplication with the one who is contending with me, or to the one who is contending that I should seek favor. Asher is the relative pronoun, though sadakti is from sadak. Uh, to be righteous, it's the cow perfect first common singular from sadak. Though I were righteous, I would not answer. Lo et anet. Et anet is from ana, to answer. It's the cow imperfect first common singular from ana. Two, the one who is contending with me that I should seek favor. Lim shofati is from shafat, to judge or contend. Here we have a participle, a polel participle, masculine singular, with the pronominal suffix first person singular in the hirikyot to the one that would be contending with me that I should seek favor. Et Hanan is from the root Hanan. It is a hitpael, imperfect, first common singular from Hanan, to seek favor. And so the thought here in verse 15, even if he knew that he had not sinned, Job says, I would not be able to answer God, but would be forced by his awesome presence to simply implore his mercy. How can I do that before such a powerful God and even try to declare my innocency? And then in verse 16, Job continues, Im karati vaya aneni lo aamin ki ya azin koli. If I had called and he answered me, I would not believe that he would hear or hearken unto my voice. If I called, karati is the cow perfect, first common singular from kara. So if I called and he answered me, if I called to God and he answered me, ya aneni is from ana, to answer. And here we have, let's say he was caused to answer me, or he answered me. I'm understanding this as a hifil imperfect first or third masculine singular from ana, with the hay, lamed hay ending, and the hay has elided, and then we have our pronominal suffix first person singular. So if I had called him and he answered me, yet I really do not believe that he would hearken and give ear to my voice. That's the thought here. Job expresses his frustration in verses 16 and following. But here in verse 15, the thought is again, God is so awesome that even in verse 16, if I called and he answered me, I honestly don't believe that he would give ear to my voice. Job simply feels that God has caused his misfortunes. The prospect of God's answering Job's plea seems remote to Job. And so we continue in verse 17. Notice it says, Asher bisara Yeshufeni, v'hirba fetzai hinam. He who would break or crush me with a tempest and multiply my wounds without cause. So God would simply crush him with a tempest, he's saying. Ra is like a a stormy tempest. And Yeshufeni is from the root shu, to crush. It's the cow imperfect third masculine singular from the middle weak verb shuv, followed by the pronominal suffix first person singular. This is the same root used in Genesis 3 of crushing the head of the serpent or bruising the heel. And in my own understanding of that, from a Christian interpretive perspective, I believe the verb is used to show Christ's ultimate defeat, the seed of the woman, crushing the head of the serpent, being Satan and his kingdom. So that's the way it's used in Genesis 3, I believe. But here it's talking about God crushing Job with a tempest if he would try to go before him. And he would cause to be much or multiply my wounds without cause. Hirba is from rabbah, to multiply. It's a hiphil perfect, third masculine singular from rabbah. So he would cause to multiply my wounds without a cause. Again, he feels innocent, but what's the use? Seems to be the thought of trying to contend before God. So then he goes on in verse 18. Excuse me. Loyitani hashev ruchi ki yasbiani mimmerorim. Though that he would not, or he would not give me or suffer me, literally, to take my breath, but he would cause me to be filled with bitterness. Loyitani is from the root natan, to give. The noon, it's a pay noon verb where the noon has assimilated into the tav here. Yitanani, we have the hinge and the ain, and then your pronominal suffix, first person singular. So he would not give me, cow imperfect again, third masculine singular. Hashev, for the returning of my breath. Here we have, in my understanding, a hiphil infinitive absolute from shu, for the causing to return, or the returning of my breath. In other words, I will not even be able to hardly get my breath before him. For he would fill me with bitterness. Yasbiani is from the root sava, to fill. It's a hiphil imperfect, third masculine singular from sava, with the pronominal suffix first person singular. So what we have in these verses 16 to 18, is Job expresses his frustration clearly in these verses, since he feels that God caused his misfortunes. The prospect of God's answering Job's plea seems very remote to Job. In other words, he doesn't feel that God is going to really answer his plea, or would answer his plea, but simply fill him with more bitterness. So as we come to verse 19, Im lechoach amitz hinam, or hina, ve'im lemishpat mi yo ideni. If it be with reference to strength, a matter of strength, behold, he is mighty. And if it's a matter of justice, who will appoint me a time to appear before God, is his thought. And how could I do that at all? Notice verse 19. If it were for strength, he is amitz, he is mighty. And if lemishpat, if it's for justice, then who will be able or cause me to have an appointed time? Yoidani is from the root ya'ad, to make an appointment or to set an appointed time. It's a hifil imperfect, third masculine singular from ya'ad. I'm understanding this probably as a pei bav root. And so in the hifil, it went from yao idani to yo idani, where the AW lengthened to the whole involved. So if it's a matter of justice, who will appoint me a time from Ya'ad? As we look at verse 19, the thought seems to be no one can challenge God, Job is saying, in a contest of strength or in a lawsuit. Before God, everyone is weak and helpless. That seems to be his point. Everyone before God is powerless because of his great power and of his omnipotence. So then we go to verse 20. Im etzdak pi yarshieni tam ani v'ya kasheni. Though I be righteous, my mouth will condemn me. And though I am innocent, he will declare me to be perverse or crooked. In other words, I can't win, is Job's point. Im etzdak is from the root sadak, to be righteous. It's the cow imperfect, first common singular from sadak. Though I be righteous, my mouth will cause me to be condemned. From rasha, here we have a hifil imperfect with the patha kirik yod, or the AI vowel pattern. He will cause me to be condemned. Hifil imperfect, third masculine singular from rasha, with your pronominal suffix in the e preceded by the hinge in the ni. So he will condemn me, though I am innocent, tam, pure, innocent. He will prove me perverse. Vaya kasheni is from the root akash, to declare crooked, or he will cause me and prove me to be perverse. A hifil imperfect, third masculine singular from akash with the pronominal suffix, first person singular. So what Job is saying, even if he were innocent, Job knows that in a confrontation with God, who is infinite and all powerful, he would only be compelled to admit that he was guilty. That's all he could do. So then we come to verse 21, where Job boldly is going to declare his innocency. Tam ani lo eda nafshi em as hayai. I am innocent. literally, innocent I am, Job then boldly proclaims. And I do not regard my life. I do not know my life, or I let it go. In other words, I am not afraid to declare my innocency, Job is saying before God, for I am innocent, in contrast to what his friends are saying, is his argument. And so, Ada is from the root yada, to know. It's the cow imperfect first common singular from yada. Historically, vada, a paid vav verb, where the vav has elided, and we have compensatory lengthening under the olive here. So I am innocent, I regard not my life, and I despise my life. Us is the cow imperfect first common singular from us, to despise, and chayai means my life. So the thought here, in spite of Job's feelings of helplessness before God, he nevertheless boldly pleads his innocency amidst deep discouragement, and is willing to even say, whatever happens to me, I'm going to declare my innocency. So I'm going to stop here, and we'll pick up at verse 22. We're gradually trying to plow through the book of Job, looking at each, as we said, verse from the Hebrew with grammar analysis and a commentary. And we've already completed chapter 1 up to this point, 9:21 here, and we've completed the speeches of the Lord in chapters 38, concluding in chapter 41. So we're just slowly working our way through the debate section, and we'll stop here and pick up next time at verse 22 of chapter 9.